Hey everybody, welcome back to GTM. Today we're taking a look at the Discovery Optics 5-25 by 56. This one is their new model. It's the ED-PRS. I have it mounted up on my CZ457 in 22 LR, and I'm going to go ahead and take a couple shots here at 330 yards.
I hope you can hear those hits. It's pretty noisy with the wind, but the ring is still there at 325 yards. I'm shooting a thick piece of steel, and it's harder to hear than a thin piece of steel, but it's making those hits just on repeat.
Let's start off with some of the specs. So it is a 5-25. That's a 5 times magnification range, and that's really good for PRS in general. The objective is a 56 millimeter. The tube diameter is a 34 millimeter. Length, I'm going to give it to you in inches. It's 16.34 inches, and then the weight is 2 pounds 9 ounces. It is a first focal plane, again, very important. It's a PRS model. Illumination is there, 6 positions with off in between. Field of view at 100 yards is 23 feet down to 3.4. The eye relief is 4.68 down to 0.93. It does have a zero stop, very effective one. The click value per click is 0.1 mrad. The elevation adjustment is advertised as 15 mils. Keep watching the video because I'm going to tell you something about that in particular. I found it had quite a bit more. Windage adjustment range is advertised at 8.7 mils. The coating on the lenses, it's fully multi-coated. It's nitrogen purge, shock-proof, waterproof, and fog-proof. So it should be good to go for most applications just based off those ratings right there. So winter may not start officially until the 21st, but here in Minnesota, it's winter time. Snow on the ground, we're going to have sub-zeros in the next week, and I've been able to start using the Optic and testing it in cold weather, and I'll tell you, I did a lot of shooting in very, very cold weather. In Minnesota, you really can't get away from the cold or the wind too well, but at least there's vegetation everywhere. And so the vegetation, and I've got a big wind flag up there, at least that much you can read downrange. Even shooting at 325 yards with a 22, that's some really intense wind. But this is called the PRS. And so in advertising it that way, I wanted to test it that way. So I put it on tripods, I shot from lots of different kinds of positions, and I shot it in the weather that I'll be shooting competitions in. And it's very important to me that it functions well in those types of weather conditions. So I shot on the tank trap for a while. Here's a little bit of that at 200 yards. Actually, I think it's 219, if I'm correct, 219 yards. This isn't at my most recent competition, but at the most recent competition I was at, we did some shooting off of a rooftop at 200 and, I think it was 200 yards and then 248 yards. And so you needed to have a good position. You needed to build your position. The slats that you positioned yourself on the roof were very small. They were not like a regular 2x4, and so you had to get real comfortable and be positionally steady, and then you needed good data. And it wasn't windy that day, which was great. It was a little windier on this particular day when I was filming. And here shooting at 220 yards, just kind of getting some more practice in. I was really impressed because this is about sundown. I think it was 3 minutes to sundown, so you can kind of tell it's dark. It's got that cloudy, overcast kind of feel anyways that day. So light collection is very important. Here with a 56 millimeter objective, and I'll talk more about that detail in the future, I was able to get the light that I needed, and I felt like the eye box was not terrible. I was on 17 power, I think, at this moment. It was not terrible at all, and so 17 power, zooming in a little bit, sometimes that darkens your image, especially when it's already around sundown. But the 56 millimeter objective did get enough light collected and allowed enough to pass through to my eye where I could make out my 4-inch target at 220 yards, and as well as some clays that were sitting out in the dirt at a little different distances. So for an optic to be valuable to me, it needs to perform well in the competition. It can't let me down here because I'll be really upset, quite honestly. And so in this competition, it was the first comp I ran this optic in, and the stage that you're looking at here was actually my worst of the day. It was my worst stage, and it was a prone stage, but you had 5 targets set out at different distances, only out to a little past 100 yards. But you had a lot of data to run. There was a lot of dialing, and here's the positive. Very, very good image. Eye box was not bad on the power I was shooting. I usually shoot a little bigger field of view, so it's lower power at that moment. But everything I dialed to, it was perfect. It dialed exactly there. I was very, very happy with the reticle, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And everything the scope provided was excellent. I kind of sucked it up on the way back in because you shoot small targets, like 1.5-inch targets, on the way out to 100 yards, and then back in again from your furthest target. And on the way back in, man, the clock got me. I did not beat the clock on this one. I probably don't practice this enough, but I do want to practice some standing, and I need the reticle to be visible, functional on targets, even for those standing or sling stages. And so here at 219 yards, I could control that reticle pretty well. On my channel, I don't particularly focus on the aesthetics of things. I usually focus on the function and operation, mechanical reliability of devices, especially optics. That's what I need to know. It's Minnesota, it gets cold, things freeze up, and I just need to know that stuff's going to work for me during competitions or hunting. But I'll tell you, on the aesthetic side, I actually think this optic looks really good. I'm a big fan of what they put together here, particularly a couple things. I like the big oversized turrets, and I'm going to talk more about that very soon here. I like the big objective bell. I think one of the reasons that this optic is 16.34 inches long is because it helps get maybe the light a little more true and accurate, helps with the image to some degree. And for PRS, it looks really good. Speaking of PRS, let's talk about the reticle. That's going to matter a lot in PRS. And so here on the left, I just took a little bit of a shot through the glass itself on a very bright wall. There's actually a light behind that, and it's super bright, and I'm testing out the illumination on the brightest settings there. You can kind of see on the right there where I have a picture of the reticle. That center portion, just that quad right there, is what lights up with the illumination, and really that makes sense to me. That's all I need. I don't need all of the Christmas tree illuminated, especially for a guy like me who dials to most of my targets. I'm very happy with the reticle. If you'll notice that center quad is actually a little thinner than the exterior and the further mills. The lateral lines, I use those a lot at extended ranges, so I'm very happy to see a lateral line. I usually need some lines above too. Sometimes I'll use that for milling or ranging. A few other things I think they did well were just using the space, using the real estate they had there for good information. I don't like unnecessarily busy reticles, but I do want lots of information. I want them to use up the space with functional information. So the listing on the left side of the Christmas tree with the numerical indicators telling you which mill you're on, it's very good because I do use those holdovers. And then on top of that, the lateral lines have indicators on the left side, right side. Makes a lot of sense on windy days especially. And then if you move down, there is an 11th mill there technically with 2/10 breakups. I like that a lot. And then a chevron at the very bottom. So they did a great job making all of that space something useful. Here's a little footage of a guy shooting his first time at 200 yards with a 22.
What? You got it! Hey. 200 yards. Nice, dude.
That's 200 yards, buddy.
All right, bolts up, then back. You can do it again.
Now this is all going to be all you.
I didn't get to shoot 200 yards the first time I was shooting again. Yeah, you're on it, dude. Keep going. One more.
So obviously the reticle is not so complicated that a new shooter couldn't jump on it and understand it or make good sense of it, and also was able to see the reticle itself. Now I want to move on to some of the features of the scope itself, and I think I'll start off with that objective bell, talking about the glass a little bit. It is ED glass, which is a step up from kind of your entry-level glass. It is a better quality glass, and you can certainly tell looking through this piece of glass. If you've used a lot of entry-level optics, this will be a noticeable improvement, and I think you'll be very satisfied with that experience. It really didn't hold me back from seeing things nice and clear, even in the evening. Part of being satisfied with your glass and your image is going to be understanding the parallax knob. The parallax knob, for lack of a fuller description, it's going to help your image appear more clear. And so that's a kind of a byproduct of using the dial anyways. Long story short, parallax knob is very, very nice. If you can tell, there's an aggressive texture on there. I'm going to show you my finger in a second here so you can see that aggressive texture. Again, it's a smooth knob. It's not tight. It's not too firm. It's a nice smooth knob, but I have to get a good grip on it. And especially when it's cold, I need something that my hands aren't just going to slip off with. And I was very happy with the texture, the design, the smoothness. It goes down to 25 yards, just about, maybe more like 25, 26 yards. It's somewhere in there. And then it goes up to infinity, and I found it to be a very good size dial. I can still see my bubble level behind that. That's another important thing as you get to these larger size dials in general. And then you have the illumination knob, which I already showed a little bit of the internal illumination through the reticle there, that shot, and it works good. It has that same type of feature and texture on it with off in between. They did a great job, good execution on that one. Another feature you need to know how to use is your ocular focus, your reticle focus here. This one moves nice and freely, even on a cold day. It was smooth back and forth, very happy with that. Even when it was warmer, the tolerances were not sloppy. Wasn't worried about it just shifting around or moving around with an eye cap, perhaps. It just looks like it's gonna function and hold to the place you need it to be. If you're not sure how to set your ocular lens, ask a friend or go online and watch that for your reticle focus. It's very important, and you're gonna get the best experience for shooting if you know how to use that. Magnification range is 5 to 25 here, and the ring itself, if you don't use the cattail or the throw lever, the additional piece that I am grabbing with my thumb right there, if you don't use that, there is a texture on the ring itself, and that'll be enough to help you turn it. It's on the firm side. I actually needed to throw the cattail on there personally, and it just made it much more smooth. Again, it's a PRS style optic, and so I'm going to throw that cattail on there probably 9 times out of 10 because I want to be able to go quickly. I want to switch view quickly and go back and forth between usually about 10 power and around 20 power, just real quick, and that helped quite a bit. All right, onto the turrets. This is really important. They are super tactile, very aggressive knurling on there. I like that a lot, especially in the winter in Minnesota. The numbers, numerical indicators on there are great. They're large size, and the dial is enormous. It's the biggest dial I have on any turret. 37 mils of internal travel, and the windage and the elevation both sound the same. Numbers line up right on 0, and the 0 stop is highly effective. No issues at all. So the turrets feel great, they sound great, I think they look great personally. How do they function? That's the important thing, and I'm going to say they function fantastically. With modern materials, machining, the increases we've had in that production and the capability, not to mention there's been so many designs to build off of from the past and slowly increase and improve performance. I think this has some really great internals. I think it functions well, seems pretty clean, and functions great. I mean, I ran this out to 625 yards, guys, and I don't have a collimator. I don't have something to put that into and be 100% sure, but I ran it out to 625 yards, and it matched my data that I've used many, many times previously, and I admit 625 yards is way too far for a 22. It's just fun, and it's something I do to test the extremes of both the optic, the internal elevation, a little bit of my wind skill, and then also ammunition and the bottom of the reticle in the glass. It tests the glass quite a bit when you max things out and hold at the bottom. So in doing that, my data matched up actually exactly to the number, to the T, guys, with what I've seen in the past and very reliable information I've had. And so I feel very comfortable saying I think the tracking is true. It's great. I'll keep testing it over the next few months. Even though I don't have a columnator, I'm pretty confident that this is less than 1% tracking error. And I noticed that they have a checklist. They do have a checklist before they send this out. They're going to make sure that it's not broken or tracking poorly before it comes to you guys. And so that's one more reliable thing that they can do for you to make sure that you're getting the best quality version of their product. So briefly, I do want to go over with you what's inside the box. It is a pretty large box overall. It's probably the biggest optics box I've ever received because I think there's the most inside this that I've ever received with an optic. Again, remember this optic is being sold under $500. Pretty impressive. So on the box, it's going to tell you that this is a shock-proof, waterproof, ulti-slim tunnel vision. Okay, not familiar with this part just yet. Big eye box, nitrogen purged, fully multi-coated, and then it talks about their warranty and has ED glass. So that's what the small text is there. And take the lid off. All right, so check this out. There's a lot of stuff in here. Looking inside, first of all, you have sunshades, and I said sunshades, plural. There's the first one. Okay, I used that one, I roughed it up a little bit. The second one. There's a second. Yes, these do thread into each other. Let's see if I can just show you that. So you could double the size of your sunshade if you want to. I can't put it on the optic right now because the rifle I'm using has an extreme amount of cant built into the optic, and so the rifle barrel would prevent this from being on there. But this is actually a longer version, so you can customize. I think that's why they're including 3 separate sunshades. You can customize the length if you need it a little bit longer than the longest one, or you just need a little bit shorter, or you wanted to go just the length of a single. All of those accommodations would work. Or for some reason, if you really thought it was a good idea, you could put that on your gun and look ridiculous. But either way, it comes with 3, and so you can customize it and make the length of sunshade that you actually need. And that's kind of a cool idea. Just the fact that they're throwing it in, there's more free stuff, that's awesome. I guess you pay for it, that's true. But I think the price does not reflect the fact that you get so much free stuff for the quality of the optic. That's my opinion. You have a scope leveling kit in here, and I've already taken it out. I've been messing with this one a little bit. And with the current setup that I have, I'm not going to be able to use this. It's not going to function the right way with my rifle and the way that my rail is set up. But if you had a regular Picatinny rail, there's something here to look at and consider. If you've never used this, you've never leveled your reticle before, that's a big problem. You need to level your reticle. So I'm just going to pull this out quickly and just give you the basic idea. If you put that in your Picatinny and you were to slide this up inside the ramp like this, as this piece goes up, like so, try to balance it here. As this piece goes up, it stays level, and it's going to, oops, if it goes up, it's going to stay level, and it's going to help you keep the bottom of your scope level to the Picatinny rail, right? And then that will help, hopefully, level your reticle. If everything's done right, everything's right on the inside, that'll work out. There is a cool, let's see, optic cleaner, your glass cleaner. When you get to nicer glass in general, it's better to use like a brush. This side has a brush side. It's better to use something like this so that you're just brushing off material. You don't want to just grind in with a cloth on the optic itself. You could be rubbing sand right into the glass. And so as you get better and better glass, you want to first brush it off and then go to the other side and squeegee that off if there's any residue or dust. But you got to be careful about that with better and better glass. Don't want to wreck your image. Of course, there is your instruction manual. There's a little card. There's a little index card here, a coaster, whatever this is. Probably a coaster. And it's got some information on there that might be useful to you if you want to just keep it in your back pocket and know about that. I'm going to tell you that the advertised amount of internal elevation I found my Optic to have more. I had 37 mils of internal E that was usable, functional. Then there are these rings, and I'm not using these rings in particular right now, but that's not because I don't like them. It's not because they're poor quality. They're great. They're very, very good. I actually like them. They seem robust. I believe they'll hold zero well. And next, I'm actually going to be running this Optic on an air gun. It's the next part of the testing, and I will use these because I need higher rings. On the current rig, I was fine with lower rings, but that's super cool. Everything inside the package is going to help you get going. So when you purchase your Optic, you don't need to go try to find rings. You don't have to try to get a sunshade. You have a leveling kit, you have a brush, you have your manual, and there's also a cloth if that's something you want to use. So pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff in here. One thing I should mention is the throw lever is not attached for the magnification ring. It is not attached to the Optic when you get it. It's just sitting right here in this hole, and I attached it right away because I like those a lot. I think it's really cool that Optics manufacturers are including that with their packages now. It's just better and better value overall. This is a lot. If you're watching this and you're wondering, well, who is this really designed for? What's their goal with this? The name gives it away. It's called the PRS, and I think this is designed very well for people who are getting into PRS especially. But I'm going to tell you, I've been shooting NRL 22 and little competitions like that for quite a while, and I'm going to be keeping this Optic. I like it a lot. I think it's designed well for a variety of tasks. 5 to 25 in my experience is not too much for hunting. I think it does really well with target shooting, even small group shooting. 25 power is quite a bit of magnification. You can shoot tiny little groups with that. And it has the parallax that goes down to 25 yards, so I'll still be using it for NRL 22. It has the internal elevation to go really, really far, 37 mils, so something that you might shoot a little bit further, or ELR shooting for 22 especially. Air guns, if you're going to shoot 25 yards or further, that's going to be an ideal Optic for you. I think it probably covers the bases for most popular shooting right now. It's a great value.